In the heart of the American Midwest, in the quiet town of Lincoln, Nebraska, a vibrant young woman named Sydney Irene Loofe embarked on a journey that would capture the nation's attention and unravel a haunting mystery. Her story is one of hope, connection, and a tragic turn that shook a community to its core. Sydney, a spirited and outgoing individual, embraced life with enthusiasm. Her wide smile and infectious energy endeared her to friends and family alike. Yet, beneath the surface of her seemingly ordinary life, a series of events would unfold, leaving her loved ones in disbelief and the community on edge. Sydney Irene Loofe was born on August 21, 1993, to George and Susie Loofe in Broken Bow in Custer County, Nebraska. She was raised in Arcadia along with her big brother Levi and her little sister Mackenzie. When she was 7 years old, the family moved to Neligh, Nebraska, where she joined Neligh Oakdale Public Schools from 2nd grade, where her dad was a principal until she graduated in May 2011. Sydney loved the outdoors, riding her bike to the pool, swinging on the tree swing, and sledding. Sydney's mother Susie remembered how her daughter was a tomboy who could outfish most of her family and always wanted to tag along on fishing trips with her father and brother. The Loofes fished near Yankton, South Dakota, on the Missouri River near Niobrara, and while vacationing in Valentine or Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Sydney's father coached her junior high basketball club team. She was a great baseline jumper, a natural athlete, and played golf. Unfortunately, her active lifestyle ended in her teenage years when she developed scoliosis. Her loved ones knew she had struggled with depression, but she always tried to stay positive. It was good to see her happy. Following her graduation in 2011, Sydney worked for 2 years as a cashier at a hardware store before being transferred to the outlet near 27th Street and Cornhusker Highway. After some time, she moved to Lincoln, Nebraska, where she joined her siblings. They fondly recalled how their sister, messy at times, had a kind and generous side and helped people during their tough times. Her parents, George and Susie, lived 3 hours away, but they would get together as often as they could and also messaged each other always. Sydney had told her friends that she had met a woman by the name of Audrey on Tinder. She had even shared Audrey's picture with them. Sydney had a tattoo on her arm that read, "Everything will be wonderful someday." Her new romance was making her feel hopeful. She had been on a date with Audrey 2 days earlier, where they had simply driven around getting to know each other. Dressed in a white jacket and a cream shirt, Sydney took a selfie and shared the photo on Snapchat with the caption, "Ready for my date." She was smiling for the camera and looked excited, and even added a heart-eyed emoji. But the next morning on November 16, 2017, Sydney didn't turn up for work. Her manager Leah Shaw and her parents were worried. Her mother said, "She's not the type of person who would have just not missed work. She would have told somebody." When her friends contacted us saying they were concerned, it made me concerned. She wasn't even returning messages from her parents, so they got into their car and drove straight to her apartment. They found Sydney's cat Mimsy hungry and abandoned, and straight away knew that something bad had happened. Sydney would never have neglected her cat. Her car was still there, and her mobile phone was turned off. They filed a missing persons with the police. Fears were that Sydney might have been abducted, and her parents made an emotional plea for her safe return. The last time her phone was on, it was in Wilbur, about 35 miles away. Investigators concentrated on Sydney's date, Audrey, and tracked down her number after linking her on Tinder. She answered and admitted going on a date with Sydney, but said she left her at a friend's house afterward and that she couldn't remember where that was. Police noticed that Audrey was unwilling to share basic details about herself. In the end, the officers realized that Audrey was a woman called Bailey Boswell, who was 23 years old, and that she lived in Wilbur with her older boyfriend Aubrey Trail, who was by then 51 years old. They were both mentioned as persons of interest on November 28th. The phone that Boswell was using to send messages to Sydney, as well as trails in Sydney's phone, led the police to a location 60 miles west of Wilbur. On 4th December, Sydney's body was found. Her dismembered remains were stuffed in rubbish bags in ditches in a field near Omaha. The remains were identified as Sydney's by her distinctive tattoos. Sydney's body had been cut up into 14 pieces. Some of her organs and body parts were never found. Her left upper arm was never recovered. What was found was a latex glove smeared in blood with some of the remains. Her earlobe was torn and she had bruising on her wrists, the back of her head, and inner thighs. An autopsy would reveal that Sydney's cause of death was suffocation and that she had bruising that indicated that she had fought with her attacker. Investigators were sure that Boswell and Trail were involved. Boswell had met Trail when he answered her online advert for messages. She had a young daughter whom she had lost custody of. They turned out to be a very disturbing couple. Trail and Boswell had a lot in common, inclusive of dark fantasies. In June 2017, they moved into a basement flat together in Wilbur and started defrauding antique dealers. They both enjoyed group sex with other women, who they met through Tinder. Trail would tell them stories about gaining power from killing people. Police ruled that Boswell had lured Sydney into a trap, and she had been murdered. Hours before Sydney's death, Trail and Boswell were buying the tools and supplies used to dismember her. There was even surveillance footage of them out before Sydney's date, where they bought tools and bleach. They had even chosen Sydney, hoping that her disappearance wouldn't be noticed since she lived 150 miles away from her family, which turned out to be wrong. In June 2018, they were arrested and charged with Sydney murder. Trail was a liar right from the start. He had told a newspaper that Sydney had agreed to be part of a sexual fantasy with him and two other women, while Boswell had passed out on drugs in another room. It had got rough, and something had become tight around Sydney's neck. Trail also told his lawyer that he'd had a sex party with just Boswell and Sydney. They had sex, but while Sydney was handcuffed, he had choked her with an electrical cord and killed her. But Trail would change his version of events again in 2020 in the courtroom during the trial. The prosecutors said that the twisted couple had already planned to kill someone before finding Sydney. Boswell would connect with the women after she and Trail picked a target together by looking on social media. During proceedings, Trail grew angry at negative testimony about Boswell's guilt and screamed, "Boswell is innocent, and I curse you all," before using a blade to cut his throat. He was taken to hospital and ended up missing most of his trial. He returned to testify in his defense with scars on his neck. The defense said that Sydney had agreed to be filmed doing sexual asphyxiation in return for money. But when Trail took to the stand, he admitted that was a lie, shocking his legal team. The killer said he had twisted stories to confuse the investigators. Trail said, "It was only me, Boswell, and Sydney there the night Sydney died. There were no two other girls there. There was no $15,000 paid for a sexual fantasy." He claimed Sydney's killing wasn't planned, but she had been lured to the apartment by Boswell, and Sydney had freaked out. They had hoped she would join their sex ring and criminal activities. But when she resisted, Trail killed her and dismembered her with a saw to protect their lifestyle. The court was given a horrible insight into that lifestyle. 3 women testified about meeting Boswell through Tinder, and later Boswell introduced them to Trail, whom she described as her boyfriend and sugar daddy. The women described being given manicures, expensive clothes, cell phones, drugs, and a weekly allowance of $150 to $200. In exchange, the women testified they were expected to engage in group sex with Trail and Boswell, whom they had to refer to as daddy and mommy. They also helped in the antique business scams. Trail said he was a vampire who could fly and read minds. He and Boswell claimed they could gain more powers by killing people, even more if they tortured them first. There were strict rules about the women staying in touch with Trail, and they talked about being punished if they broke the rules. They were slapped or even choked with a belt. If one woman left the sex cult, Trail threatened to kill her family if she told anyone. They were also forbidden from being with any other men. They had to ask to do anything, and were locked inside the couple's home or a motel room. The women further said that Trail told them that they needed to torture and kill someone to gain more power, and that he could film it, sell the footage for $1 million, and split the money equally among them. Trail even suggested who to take as the victim. The women said they left the cult by November 2017, before Boswell lured Sydney in. After Sydney's murder, later that month, one woman said Boswell had called her and convinced her to travel with them to a casino. She said she got a weird vibe from them at that time. and immediately she saw that the Lincoln police were trying to contact them, she left. The jury took 3 hours to consider the case. The couple were both found guilty of first-degree murder, criminal collaboration to commit murder, and improper disposal of human remains. On June 9, 2021, at a sentencing for Trail in front of a 3-judge panel, he gave a statement. He admitted that he had killed Sydney, but he maintained it wasn't intentional. He had killed her because he was worried that Sydney would go to the police if he let her go. Trail said to Sydney's family, "I won't say I'm sorry, as that would be an insult to you after what I put you through. And I won't ask for forgiveness, as I don't believe there is such a thing. I have even done some terrible things in my life, but this is the only thing I have ever done that I really regret about." The judges stated that Trail had shown a cold, calculated level of planning, mentioning that he had even boasted about the killing afterward, and joked that he had drunk Sydney's blood. The judges further stated that dismembering Sydney's body was needless and done to satisfy his intellectual and sexual curiosity. Trail was given the death penalty. Boswell trial in September 2020 was much less dramatic, but there was also more physical evidence against her, inclusive of her DNA on a latex glove found in Sydney's remains. In October, she was found guilty on all 3 counts. Her sentencing hearing began July 1, 2021, with her defense arguing that Boswell's history of sexual and physical abuse made her the perfect victim of Trail and that she should not receive the death penalty. She begged for her life to be spared for her daughter's sake. The judges said Sydney had found herself in the killer's flat, outnumbered and unable to defend herself. Boswell's action and words demonstrate that she had no regard for the life of Sydney Loofe beyond her pleasure, another judge said. One judge didn't agree on the death penalty, so Boswell was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Sydney Irene Loofe's story is a heartbreaking reminder of the vulnerability we all face in our daily lives. May her memory serve as a catalyst for change, inspiring us to prioritize safety, look out for one another, and foster a world where individuals can connect without fear. If you found this video compelling, leave a like, and your thoughts in the comments. Be sure to subscribe and check out our other videos.